Mamelodi Sundowns survive a scare against Yanga after penalty kick shootouts, but Ahly are very, very comfortable as Africa's two biggest sides cruise on into the semifinals of the 2023-2024 African Champions League. Let's talk about it. Hello and welcome to another episode of the African Five-A-Side Podcast. My name is Meher Mizahi, and as always, this podcast is brought to you by the good folks over at www.africasaCountry.com. So let's talk about that first match, Mamelodi Sundowns versus Yanga. This was the second leg of the quarterfinals. In the first leg that was played in Tanzania, the match finished 0-0. That was a match with not a lot of chances. Mamelodi Sundowns dominated possession, but Yanga were okay with giving them that possession, and they were trying to hit on the counter-attack. I thought it was a good game plan from their Argentinian coach, Miguel Gamondi, who, again, we remind you, knows Rolando Mokoena from their time over, I believe, at Platinum Stars in South Africa back in maybe 2007, 2008, something like that. It's been a long time. Anyways, so this was a lot riding on this match, especially, the Tanzanian clubs. They have two teams in the quarterfinals. It would be great to get one of them into the semifinals for the first time in a long time. And the odds were stacked against Simba because they lost the first match at home and then they have to go to Egypt against the current reigning defending champions, Ahly. I think more optimism and more of the chips were pushed onto the Yanga side, the young African side from Tanzania. They thought, who knows, maybe they can get a result in Pretoria in South Africa. And if you recall, after the last match, I said, you cannot try to go to South Africa or play Sundowns and try to dominate them on the pitch. You can't try to have the lion's share of possession and try to play intricate, attractive football and outplay them that way. Because even Gamondi, Yanga's coach, acknowledges that Sundowns are the best team in Africa in terms of footballing teams that can play football, So we kind of said that Yanga would probably have to try to do the same thing, 1 week from now, which was today, that they would have to try and frustrate Sundowns, stay compact, make sure there are no spaces behind the defense or between the lines. And when recovering possession, fly up the pitch, make sure you get numbers up the pitch, and try and score a goal. See if you can frustrate Sundowns that way. And this wasn't a surprise. I mean, everybody could see that this was how this game was going to go. Even Mokoena in the pre-match press conference said, there are many teams in Africa playing this way now. He said, I saw it in the Premier League recently. I forget which match he cited. It's Aston Villa versus somebody. And he's basically saying, we know what Yanga are going to do. We know what the issue is. We know that they're not going to leave spaces behind the defense or between the lines. Our players are ready for this. We're gonna be able to get a result despite the fact that we're going up against this tactic, which is sort of designed to frustrate ball-playing sides, right? And here's where, it's been the better part of a year now since I interviewed Rolando Mokoena for Al Jazeera English. And for me, he's one of the most fascinating personalities in African football at the moment, the best coach tactically on the African continent at the moment. But from the very beginning, my question was always about him. Can he make his side stronger collectively? Can he, for example, help them avoid collective mistakes? Because this was something that I thought of immediately, prior to their last year's semifinal against Wydad Casablanca. If you remember, in South Africa, I think they got a draw away from home, if I'm not mistaken, and they got a draw at home as well. I think the draw away from home in Morocco was 1-1 and at home was 2-2. But the goals that they conceded in that match, the 2-2 match at home, goalkeeping error, own goal, Peter Shalulile, one of the most reliable strikers in South African football history maybe, misses a sitter. And you're thinking, how is it possible that all of these great players, Ronwen Williams, Mvala, Shalulile, how do they all decide to make individual mistakes on the same day at the same time in the same match? And is the coach responsible for that? To what extent is the coach responsible for individual mistakes? Because I interviewed him before that match, and he was telling me, like how they're preparing for Wydad. As before they were going to Casablanca, he was talking about pumping in crowd noise during training sessions. There was a thing where he was using a smaller ball. There was a few different things he was trying to manipulate psychologically, trying to make sure the players are, not hit and struck by that kind of intimidating atmosphere you can get in Casablanca. And I was curious about like how can he work on, getting a side that had repeatedly stumbled and repeatedly failed in knockout stages past those hurdles. And he failed in the Champions League last year. I mean, if we can hold him to account for individual mistakes, then he failed. I don't think everything is his fault, because on one hand, even the stadium attendance, you go to those places, Casablanca, Tunis, Algiers, Cairo, how it used to be, not how it is now. Those are very, very intimidating atmospheres. And if you go to Pretoria, with all due respect, it isn't an intimidating atmosphere at Loftus. And that's not Rulani Makwena's fault. That's not Mamelodi Sundowns players' fault. That's just the way it is. That club, Sundowns, the Brazilians, they don't have fanatic supporters that are going to pack a stadium 40, 50,000 strong and put pressure on the opposing side or on the referee. And I thought it was interesting that the coach went to the press conference before the match against Yanga, and he didn't plead, but he almost asked the supporters, hey, we need you, come out, And so on one hand, I was feeling, okay, he understands, again, going back to the intangibles, he understands the intangibles. But on the other hand, as I continue to listen to the press conference, he starts talking about, we dream of winning the Champions League, but it's not an obsession because that's bad energy, that's dark energy. I was like, no, it needs to be an obsession because everybody else is obsessed. You could talk about dark energy all you want, but those North African clubs are obsessed with winning the Champions League. They're obsessed with winning trophies. And if you're not obsessed and you're not willing to drag yourself down into that dark energy, into that dark place, I don't know if you can match them. When they're cheating to get that extra inch, or 6 inches or 1 meter, if you're not doing the exact same thing, I don't know if that bodes well for you. And so I keep thinking about Mokwena. Again, it's been a year now, but I keep thinking about ideas like idealism versus pragmatism or realism. You look at. Yeah, I'll share with you an exchange I had with a colleague yesterday, actually, as we're preparing to indulge in this match. And this is a colleague that knows South African football very well and knows Rulani Mokwena. And he says he needs to snap out of his idealism and be pragmatic sometimes. I think that's the club's weakness. Almost every other teams in the Champions League has a number 9 that they can rely on as a plan B. Sundowns have never really signed a genuine 9. The last was Brocky, and he was a flop because they didn't play to his strength. So you see like where I'm going with this is you can be so stubborn sometimes in your idealism, in your ideas, and your motivation. And sometimes, in a competition like the Champions League, you can't impose your ideas everywhere you go because there are so many, I'm going to use that word again, intangibles. There are so many different variables, things that can go wrong. And I don't know about Rulani Makwena's ability to navigate that when things go wrong. He's still a young coach. But these are the things I think about a lot. And this match against Yanga, this was a very, very long prelude, but this match against Yanga brought up all of those ideas that I had in my mind about Mamelodi Sundowns again. Because he knew what the problem was. He knew how they were going to set up. He said it in the pre-match press conference. And he wasn't able to fix it. I thought Yanga were employing the dark arts. Jiggy Diarra in the 9th minute went down with cramp, the goalkeeper for Young Africans. In the 9th minute. As early as the 15th minute, 16th minute, they were putting pressure on the referee in terms of VAR. Young Africans came there they knew exactly what they were going to do. And they were telling Sundowns, go ahead, unlock it. Can you unlock it? And they couldn't. Over 180 minutes, they couldn't. And I'm not sure that if we played another 180 minutes, if Sundowns could have scored a goal. And there was never a plan B. There's no big number 9, like Anthony Modeste has, like El Ahly has with Anthony Modeste. Let's take another team, Esperance they have with Rodrigo Rodriguez, where you can lump up some crosses at times when you need to play more vertically, and they can be more of a menace in the box. The set pieces today. This is one of the things that drives me crazy about coaches like Mokoena is like, you are so detail oriented in every single aspect of the pitch. With your passing, with your build up play, with how you defend, with your counter pressing, everything. Everything is so detail oriented. And then you have a set piece. A set piece is, one of the few times in a match where you have the ball, you have the ball, you can control where you're going to place your players anywhere on the pitch. You can control, you have a head start. You know when you're going to take it, you know who's going to take it, you know the place they're going to deliver it, and the defense doesn't know any of that. And so, I don't understand how, like, some of these, even Guardiola for a long period of time, things are changing recently with Arteta, but for over the last decade, you're a genius coach. You're put in an advantageous position. How can all of Sundowns set pieces today were either what's his name, Aubrey Modiba, or mostly Marcelo Allende, just whipping in crosses around the penalty box, time and time again. And as soon as I made that a note, and the very last set piece of the match was one that was obviously from the training ground, and it was Mayema and I think Mokoena, or was it Modiba? No, I think it was Mokoena and Mayema, and somebody left it, and Mayema just chips it with his left foot, and Lucas Ribeiro all of a sudden is wide open, and he tries a scissor kick and it doesn't work. But it's like, more of that, please. You have so many brilliant ideas about everything else on the pitch. Why can't we do more with set pieces, right? These are the things that frustrate me, like corner kicks, and then crossing and attacking more vertically. Using width a little more. I know that's not in right now with coaches like Mokoena, but using width a little more, dragging the fullbacks out. Anyways, let's talk about Yanga a little bit. So my thoughts are all over the place a little bit, but that's where I am with Sundowns. It's, you knew how your opponent was going to play. You're at home. There was a decent turnout at home from the supporters. You weren't able to break them down. Not only over 90 minutes, but over 180 minutes. And guess what? Now you're going to face the winner of ASEK or Esperance. And Yanga, coming into the knockout stages, were the side that defended the worst out of everybody else that made it. So now you have ASEK or Esperance. You think if you're going to play against ASEK, it's going to be any different? It's going to be the exact same thing. There's more of the same coming for Sundowns. And so they have to show that they're capable of breaking down those teams if need be in the knockout stages. Let's talk about Yanga. I thought, hey, tip of the hat, the way they defended, the way they used their experience, the way they counterattacked. If you go and watch their counterattacks, there's almost always minimum 3, but usually 4, 5, 6 players in the opposing box by the time they get to the Sundowns box and they're putting in a cross. I thought Gamondi executed his plan to perfection. That's exactly how you can play Sundowns. That's the only way you can play Sundowns if you want a chance and a prayer to win, because you don't have the players that Sundowns have. So you don't have the resources that Sundowns have. So hey, hat tip to Yanga, in particular Stefan Aziz Ki, the Burkinabe midfielder. Fantastic player with that left foot, that number 10. I can't wait to watch him more with the Burkina Faso national team, because I think he deserves a lot more time there. But Aziz Ki was great until he missed his penalty after extra time. And just a final note about the most controversial part of the match, which was the goal that was disallowed from Aziz Ki. First of all, another great counterattack. Aziz Ki flicks the ball up to himself on the run, smacks it, hits the crossbar, and the ball, it seems like it bounces into the goal and out. Like in the 2006 World Cup final when Zidane did it against Italy, like the phantom goal that Frank Lampard scored against Germany at the 2010 World Cup as well. It's one of those where it seems like the ball goes in and then bounces out, with the spin. And until now, I still don't know if the ref checked VAR to see if the ball went in or not. Because when I listened to Gamondi after the match, he said we were robbed. I've only ever been robbed twice in my career, once with Hassania Agadir when he was coaching them against Zamalek. But then he said there was no VAR. This was like 12 years ago. And this time around, he said we were robbed. I don't know how, Sundowns can feel happy with a win like this. I'm not blaming Sundowns. I'm blaming the referee. And then he really was. He pulled no punches. He was very direct in how he felt. You know, I still haven't seen an angle for me that is definitive that the ball completely crossed the line. It seems like the ball crossed the line for me. That's if I were a betting man, I would bet on the ball having crossed the line if I had to put something on it. But there are still those times when there's like a millimeter of the ball that's on the line, and because of the angle we're looking at it, you can't really tell. And that's the angles that you see on TV are the angles that the referee has. And so because he called it no goal on the pitch, and VAR is supposed to be instituted to correct clear and obvious errors, I don't think with that camera angle we can constitute it as a clear and obvious error. I don't think that you can say definitively that the ball completely crossed the line, personally. But for me, the more important question is, why are we using VAR to judge this? Where's the goal line technology? Are we not using goal line technology in the African Champions League? Is this something that's not planning on being instituted? What's going on here? I'm going to try and find this out, but you can VAR. We don't have not every stadium has. I was watching the Mozambique match. I think they have one PTZ camera. It's like a pan, tilt and zoom camera. So basically, the camera does this across the pitch, and if the ball's on the other side of the pitch, it's going to zoom all the way over there. But these stadiums are not fully equipped with all these angles and everything where you can tell, bird's eye views. We need goal line technology. So where was the goal line technology? I don't think you can make that call. Personally, I don't think you can make it on VAR. So in my opinion, it was the correct decision, but I just don't like how we don't have goal line technology, because it very well could have gone in as well. So that was harsh for Yanga, in my opinion, but I don't think any of us can tell without a shadow of a doubt if the ball was in or not. Anyways, the second match of the day, in my opinion, was a lot less interesting. Simba and Ahly. I was surprised how Ahly came out and they were sort of giving Simba the ball. I thought that they would go on the front foot and try to put Simba to the sword, but that's why I'm a journalist, and that's why Marcel Kohler is one of the best coaches on the continent, because I thought they played it perfectly. In the first half, in particular, I thought it was a little bit rough. Simba were quite clearly the better side. They created the better chances. Later on in the match, they were, I think, in my opinion, unlucky to not get a penalty kick. I thought that was a clear penalty kick on Ali Ma'loul. The ref not only didn't give the penalty kick, didn't check VAR, but also booked the Simba player for diving, Dennis Kibu. So that was, in my opinion, very, very harsh. But nonetheless, as impressive as Simba were in the first half, I think Ahly were even more impressive in the second half. In the second half, that's how I wanted to see them play. Well, they still gave up, I think, the lion's share. They gave up most of the possession of the ball, not the lion's share. But the way they attacked, in particular from the wings into Anthony Modeste, using him as an anchor, as a target man, and him doing a great job laying the ball off, and that's how the goal came onto on-running runners from midfield. It was Amr Souley at that time, but Hussein Shahat in particular, and Reda Slim, the two wingers for Al Ahly, were really good at creating from the wing, using Modeste as an anchor and as an entry point into the Simba box. So very mature, very competent, very stress-free performance for Al Ahly in Cairo International Stadium. And now they go on to face the winner of Petro versus TP Mazembe. So overall, look, two Tanzanian clubs go home. I think they can be proud of themselves in this quarterfinal. It's a shame that we didn't get one of them to the semifinal, but they can be very, very proud of how they performed in this edition of the CAF Champions League. We should be having an article coming out sometime this week on the two clubs and how they've grown so much over the last decade, and also what's next for Yanga and for Simba. So do look out for that on africaazacountry.com. And for the two best clubs in Africa, Mamelodi Sundowns and Al Ahly, we're on to the semifinals for consecutive years now. I think for many, many years for Al Ahly, but at least for Sundowns, 2 years in a row now. So that's one of the things that Mokoena said in his press conference was, to be a big club, we have to be here every single year. We have to have our hat in the ring, sort of. So, yeah. Tomorrow we have two big matches, Mazembe versus Petro and ASEK versus Esperance. So I'm going to give my thoughts after those matches finish, as I did now. And let me know what you think. Was it a penalty or not for Simba? Was it a goal or not for Stefan Aziski? And let me know what you think about Mamelodi Sundowns in terms of idealism versus pragmatism. Are they too idealistic? Are they too stubborn? Are they well equipped to win in the African Champions League? Those are the questions that I've been pondering a lot recently. All right, thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you soon. Peace.